what have we learned? What have we learned over this year? What are the kind of standout things that, particularly for those of you who weren't at the previous sessions, might be useful for me to feed in at this point? Well, we started out back in October with the opening workshop, which was called the Experimental Condition, which was very broad in its framing. And so partly we were looking at, if you like, the condition of reflexive modernity or of liquid modernity. What is the role that experimentation and trial and error is actually playing in this new kind of more liquid form of society that we seem to be entering. So, but at the same time, we also looked at the kind of dark, what we call the dark side, this sort of recurrent theme within the programme, that experimentation isn't always a good thing. The experimentation is also used as a technique of power. So, referencing ideas such as Deleuze's notion of the controlled society, network-centric warfare, the fact that the people who are really, really good at experimentation are actually, not necessarily the sort of people we might want to be hanging out with, and, the military entertainment complex, as Nigel Thrift called it. And I think throughout the programme, we've been reminded again and again of the key importance of a few sort of crucial works that we referred to. So one was Leviathan and the Air Pump by Stephen Payton and Simon Schaffer, which is a history book, but very much talking about the origins of the experimental form of life and making the connection between experimentation and social ordering. That to perform an experiment is always to, at the same time, to divide society up into people who are being experimented upon, who are experimenting, who are in and out, and ordering society in particular kinds of ways. So that's been a really important reference point: experimentation, society, and power. And I think that can serve us well today. Another key reference work was that of Hans-Jörg Reinberger in his History of Epistemic Things. So again, a history of science, but a more contemporary history. But some really crucial concepts came out of Reinberger's work, which we return to again and again. So the notion of the experimental system, the idea that experiments don't just occur in isolation, but generally speaking, as a form of knowledge production, they occur within a sort of systematic, a system of inquiry, a system of ways of doing things, of machineries, of knowledge which accrues over time. And also, Reinberg is very good for talking about the way that experimental systems, if they're going to be productive of new ideas, new forms, they have to be, as it were, on the edge of chaos, and a system driven to the edge where it can generate novelty and then can stabilise it. And so, in the second workshop on experiment as event in the arts and sciences, we looked at that phenomenon both in the sciences but also in the arts, in jazz and other kind of art forms. The notion of the experimental system and the generation of novelty. In further workshops, we also looked at the ways that experiments are kind of topological figures. They have an inside and an outside. They form subjectivities in particular kinds of ways, the subjectivity of the experimenter and the experimented upon. We also looked at the materiality of experiments, the way that experimentation reminds us that knowledge isn't just something that happens in people's heads. It happens through an encounter with the material world in the ways that people push at the world and it pushes back, and mediated through various technical and practical forms. And we also looked at the spatial organisation of experiment, particularly in the event we held with Future Everything in Manchester, about the experimental city. The city is a site that brings together very different forms of life and technologies and generates novelty out of that. So, at the end, where are we left by that, by all that discussion? I mean, where, for example, is the notion of the two cultures, that C.P. Snow talked about, the two cultures of art and science that he talked about 50 years ago? Are there two cultures, or did we prove that there aren't? Well, I think we kind of did both in a way. We showed ways that actually science can reveal more of its secrets if we approach it sometimes as art and through the vocabularies by which we think of art, but also that there are also important differences between the two. And this event is not just the kind of culmination or the summary of the year. It also has a specific task. It's been given a specific task by us in the programme to explore the notion of experimental society, what that might mean. And you've all of you as delegates have brought your own sort of ideas and contributions to thinking about what that might mean and whether we'd like it if we had one.